Some other tools we have on the table that I'd like to introduce include things like this handsome folding ruler, which is used for woodworking applications. An aluminum folding ruler that's used for masonry and concrete work. And the reason that it's made out of aluminum is not just because it has better wear resistance or is more durable than the one we looked at made out of wood, but because mortar and concrete are abrasive and would tend to wear off the indications on the ruler, but also because cement is less prone to sticking to aluminum than it is to wood. We also have a couple of other small folding, vintage folding rules here. This little cutie is a 16-inch folding rule. I'm sorry, a 24-inch folding rule. And then we have this little fella, which is a 12-inch folding rule, and you can see it has little brass caps on the end to minimize the wear off of that bearing surface. We have what's called a butt gauge, which is a marking gauge that's typically used by people that are framing indoors. So the mortising of lock systems and hinges is facilitated by using a tool like this. We also have another type of marking gauge here, which is commonly referred to as a scribing gauge. Left is loose and allows us to slide along the rule that is mounted on this edge, and it has a sharp point that allows us to be able to scribe an edge along the surface of a piece of wood. Here we have two different models of protractors, one with a round head, one with a square head. Here we have a metric depth gauge. We have a series of different types of squares that include precision machinist squares that have no indications or markings of measurement on them, but are specifically designed for assessing whether or not you have a precise correspondence between the head and the blade of the tool. We have a depth measuring instrument that allows us to be able to draw out a flexible tape that has indicator marks on it of measurement, and a weighted plumb bob that would that might be used to measure a long vertical height or the depth in a tank of fluid. We also have a range of different types of calipers that are used for measuring inside and outside dimensions. We have what are called spring calipers that have a spring tension built into them, and then friction calipers that are that have the tension maintained through the top end of the tool here, that allows us to be able to adjust this to a range of different sizes. This particular caliper gives us measurements from the center to an outside edge. This caliper gives us the ability to measure inside dimensions, or to rotate around to measure outside dimensions, and then a small micro adjustment for fine tuning that. This spring caliper has flat edges, which are good for measuring the thickness of cross sections of material, and here the arms are round arms on this spring caliper, and again it can be adjusted for measuring outside dimensions of an object. We also have a combination of functions in this particular tool that has a combination of a bubble level and a ruler. On one side, the ruler has fractional denotations, and on the opposite side, we have a metric standard. Last but not least, I'd like to take just a moment to talk a little bit about the measurement of wire gauge and of sheet metal thickness gauges. So one of the standard measuring devices that's used for ascertaining the thickness of cross sections of wire and sheet metal are these wheel gauges. And so these wheel gauges give us two definitions. One is the numerical designation that's associated with the thickness of those sheet metals, and on the opposing side it gives us a decimal equivalent of that wheel gauge. So another example that we see here is this little 6-inch rule that has what's called a gap gauge in the middle of it, again denoting the different standards for measuring sheet metal gauges with that numerical standard, as well as the decimal equivalents on the opposing side, and a scale that lists the range of those different standards. In subsequent modules, we'll have the opportunity to go into detail about how these tools are used. But I'd like to end this module leaving you with a quote. The ultimate measure of a person is not where they stand in a moment of comfort or convenience, but where they stand at times of challenge and controversy. So reach out to your friends, stay in touch with your loved ones, and have a happy, safe, and productive working relationship wherever you may be.